All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining Adrian and I here at Prestige Senior Living for Senior Fitness, Why It's Never Too Late to Start. Adrian Cagigas is our senior fitness expert, and he helped design our Energize Exercise and Fall Reduction program that we offer here at Prestige in our celebrations program. So Adrian's going to introduce himself a little bit more and talk about why senior fitness is important, why it's never too late to start, and where to start. We'll take questions and answers at the end. And Adrian, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for everybody for taking time out of your day to come learn a little bit about why it's never too late to start. It's a very poignant topic, especially after and currently going through the pandemic right now. A lot of you, like including myself, were very active last year and then just kind of decided because of certain circumstances to not be able to get into your gym or your personal trainer, or if you're in an assisted living community, you had to be locked down in your room. I'm sure you're really feeling the effects of not moving. So today we're going to just discuss why, number one, it's never too late to start, whether you're at any age really, but more significantly, as we age and we become more sedentary, we really lose our ability to just participate in the activities of daily living. And that's really what we're going to kind of be addressing our senior fitness highlights today on, is really why are we trying to work out, why it's never too late to start, and it's just how important it is for you in your demographic, if you're 40 and up, 50 and up, 60 and up, why it's super important to keep moving. So we're going to kind of just talk about some fall prevention. If you're going to start working out, the types of exercises you should do, the types that you probably should stay away from, and then the healthcare professionals that you should really consult with to give yourself a really good positive outcome. So a little bit about myself. My name is Adrian Cagigas. I currently own Uptown Sports Medicine. I've owned it now for 8 years. I started my career early off as an athletic trainer, helping athletes of all demographics. I've worked in Division I colleges. I've worked all through the different divisions of college, junior college, high school settings. I've worked in physical therapy clinics, chiropractic clinics, and I've been certified and licensed since 1996. I'm a licensed athletic trainer with the Washington State Department of Health. I have a master's degree in kinesiology from San Jose State University and a bachelor's of science in kinesiology from Humboldt State University. I kind of got into the world of sports medicine because I actually had the privilege of playing athletics in high school. I played 3 different sports. I played football, soccer, and baseball. And then I was fortunate enough to play at the next level. I played soccer at Humboldt State University for 2 seasons, and I actually got injured. And that's how I found out about sports medicine and athletic training and how I could help rehabilitate athletic injuries. My first job after San Jose State, I got to work at Stanford University. I worked with the men's football team, the softball team, and the gymnastics team. And then I was introduced to a chiropractor, Dr. Andre Chevalier at the team clinic in Santa Clara. And there we really focused on a lot of athletes, endurance athletes, professional athletes. And that's kind of like where I found the world of personal training. And I found how my skill sets as an athletic trainer really lent well to people of injury that were just trying to participate in their daily lives, especially the elderly. So after Santa Clara, I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, and I was the fitness director at Club Green Meadows. And the demographic at Club Green Meadows was definitely over 65. That was 15 years ago. And I found that my skill sets in biomechanics and anatomy really lent well to that demographic because most of those individuals were just wanting to stay active, but didn't really know what to do in the gym because they had some sort of orthopedic issue. So that's a little bit about myself. And like Marissa pointed out, I've been consulting for Prestige now for 8 years. I helped to design their Celebrations Energize Exercise program, which has an emphasis on falling, but really it has an emphasis on which types of exercise patterns you want to move through to ensure proper activities of daily living, not falling down. And those are simple movements such as, getting up and down off the toilet, getting out of your car. So if we're like pointing our positioning to like an athlete, we're going to do position specific movements for athletes. For seniors that need to just get around their house, we're going to do basic movements that are going to really look towards strengthening those basic movements of activities of daily living. So that's kind of like what we're going to talk about today. So remember, this is a great slide. It's never too late. As long as you're breathing, it's never too late to start a new beginning. So part of my speech today is to motivate you to actually get up and move. I think that's the most important takeaway from today, is if you can just get up and move, find some accountability with some friends, find some accountability with a personal trainer or a physical therapist, it's going to benefit you significantly. Okay, so I kind of talked about what we're going to discuss today. So the importance of exercise for seniors. This is definitely going to talk primarily about senior fitness. And senior fitness, I would say, if you were to put a number on it, it could be 60 and up. But really, we're looking into that world where people quite might not be as able. But let's set up for the next 10 years. If you're 60, what are we going to do when we're 80 and 90 and 100? So if you start now, you're going to definitely see some benefits later in life. So why exercising regularly is important, how exercise helps reduce your risk of falling, which is really critical for this demographic. And we're going to talk a little bit about, I don't know how many of you had watched my fall presentation. I think it was about last spring. We gave a presentation called Worried About Falling. So a few of these slides in the beginning are going to just touch base on the importance of fall reduction and how critical it is in the United States right now, and how much of an epidemic it could be if people don't really help to reduce the risk of falling. So tips and exercise to improve your health and to maintain independence. Okay, so the importance of exercise for seniors, most of these are, if you listen to the daily news, you're always going to hear, hey, coffee's good for you, coffee's bad for you, but moving is always going to be good for you. The hardest part for seniors is, how can I move effectively and in a pain-free range of motion that's going to motivate me to actually do it? In my personal training business, I get a lot of individuals that physically are sometimes in so much pain that I have to refer them out to a physical therapist first before we can even get them moving in a proper way. So we want to improve the ability to live independently longer, reduce your risk of falling, decrease your risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, colon cancer, all the chronic diseases. Exercise is going to help you with that. It's going to reduce your anxiety and depression, which is really critical in these stressful times, especially with COVID-19 right now. Moving is critical. It's going to help you reduce your overall ability to manage your anxiety and maybe not be as depressed. So you want to find somebody to work out with you. They're going to help you. They're going to help keep you accountable, and you can actually talk about your daily issues with that individual. You're going to improve your muscular strength, your flexibility, your mobility, and your balance. We're going to cover all these different components in today's discussion. It's going to help you lose weight. Really importantly, if any of you have some sort of orthopedic issues or chronic disease, every 1 pound that you're out of weight actually increases the amount of joint pressure up to 4 to 5 pounds. So if somebody's 10 pounds out of weight, that's 40 extra pounds of joint pressure on your spine, on your knees, on your ankles. So it's not going to feel good unless we cut that weight down before we start moving. And exercise feels good. It's a very social, it's very infectious. But unfortunately, in the United States right now, by age 75, 1 in 3 men are going to be inactive. They're going to be physically sedentary. And 1 in 2 women are not going to engage in any physical activity. So we want people to get up and move. And the most common forms of movement for people over the age of 65 are walking and gardening. And I can't stress enough how underrated walking is. If you want to just get started on an exercise program, start with a walk. And we'll discuss more of this later in our discussion. We'll give you some programming tips so that you don't hurt yourself and you start off and make it a long-term commitment, not a short-term commitment. So when we lose our strength and our balance and our mobility for older adults, often attributed to reduced in physical activity and falling. Usually when people fall down, they really get scared to move, and so they become more sedentary, which isn't good for us either. And I can't stress enough the support, the critical support with one another, and having a workout partner is really essential to maintaining that long-term commitment to exercise. So the benefits of resistance training in bone health, we're going to reduce for females especially. It's more common in females, osteoporosis and osteopenia. That's going to help build up your bone tissue so that you don't develop osteoporosis. That's what's so beneficial about resistance training. It can help, it's not going to get rid of your arthritis, but it can help reduce your arthritic pain, especially if you develop muscle movement patterns that help to stabilize the different joints. So your hip joint, your knee joint, etc., all the way down your kinetic chain. The stronger you are, the less pain your joints are going to have, as long as you don't have a significant case of degenerative joint arthritis, but we can talk about that later. The benefits of increased flexibility are going to have a pain-free lifestyle or a less pain-free lifestyle, depends on what ailments you may or may not have. It's going to increase your activities of daily living, and it's going to make it easier to tie your shoes. I kind of threw that one in because I went to a birthday party once for one of my clients, and he had turned, I think he had turned 73, and he was telling a story about how one time he was trying to tie his shoes, and his son was making fun of him because he couldn't do it. So that's something that's really important. Got to be able to tie your shoes. All right. So of those of you that heard my worried about falling presentation, these next few slides are going to kind of touch on how critical falling is in the United States, according to the CDC. And falls don't just happen. You can actually do something about it. People don't fall because they get older. There's often one or two underlying causes or risk factors directly involved with that fall. And in my personal training business, I really like to find out why that individual fell down. Was it because they are not strong? Is it because they lost their balance? There's so many different risk factors internally and environmentally that can be attributed to you falling down. So if you are a chronic faller, or if you're worried about falling, it's really important to find out why you fell down when you go and talk to a personal trainer or a physical therapist, so that they can kind of break you down and strengthen you or work on the different aspects of your falls, it's really, really important to do that. So this is a little redundant from our last presentation, but again, I think it's really, really valid. All this information is from the CDC's website. If you type in CDC fall prevention or CDC senior fitness or anything like that, there's tons of information on the Center for Disease Control about seniors and falling down. But just know that one out of 3 older adults over the age of 65 is unfortunately going to fall every year, and 50% of seniors are going to fall. So 1 in 2 of you are going to fall down if you're over the age of 80. And unfortunately, if you do fall down, your risk of injury is fairly significant. So in 2000, I believe this was from 2016, 3 million non-fatal falls were treated in the ER. So right now, that's critical. So with COVID-19 happening right now, if you fall down, it's going to be really, really challenging for you to be assessed inside of a facility or a hospital. Of those 3 million people that fell down and went to the emergency room, 800,000 people actually had to be hospitalized with either a fracture, a laceration, head trauma, and unfortunately, death is a risk factor from falling down. So we want to encourage you and motivate you to stay upright and work on your musculature that's going to enable you to walk more effectively, get through activities of daily living more effectively, and to stay upright. So the risk is significant. So this was from 2015. Sorry about that. That's how many people have fallen down in the United States. It's pretty significant. And the cost, which I really don't want to touch on, but the cost with Medicare and Medicaid is skyrocketing. It's exceeding $50 billion. And by 2030, there will be 7 deaths from falls every hour in the United States. So pretty significant thing to, if you're not concerned about it, I would really recommend that you start moving now. So that, again, is the topic for discussion today. It's never too late to start working out or exercising or just moving. And just really quickly, for those of you that live inside of a prestige senior living community or any other senior living community for that matter, the fall proofing of your facility is taken care of by those companies, which is fabulous. But if you live in your home, let's say you're like between 65 and 78 or 90 or 80-ish, and you still want to stay at home, make sure that you fall proof your house. It's really, really important. It's not only about fall proofing yourself through strength, balance, flexibility, mobility training, but it's really important to fall proof your home. Many of you may still have raised a family. They're all gone. Your house was, you bought it 20 years ago, and now that you're older, you're gonna have to make some adjustments in your house to help keep you upright. And these are just some recommendations on fall proofing your house. The most important one I would say is making sure your house is well lit with night lights at night. So if you have to get up and use the restroom, you can actually get around without tripping on anything. Remove loose rugs or clutter on the floor. Make sure that you have handrails, especially in the bathrooms. I think that's a pretty significant place for where people could potentially fall down and hurt themselves really badly, because there's lots of sharp objects to hit yourself on. But if you want more tips and tricks to fall proof your house, because this talk isn't about fall proofing your house, you can visit NIHseniorhealth.gov. So that's the National Institute of Health on the East Coast. They do a really nice job with some tips and tricks to fall proof your house. And this is my favorite part, is how do we fall proof ourselves? Well, vision is critical. I'm older now. I make a joke about this. If you heard me talk before, when I was 30, I went fishing with a friend of mine, and he's like, "Hey man, Adrian, let me see your glasses. Hand me my glasses or tie my line for me." And I wouldn't do it, and I made him tie it himself. And he's like, "You just wait till you're 45 and you're gonna need glasses." And sure enough, 43 hit, and I cannot see up close without my glasses. So being able to see and process your environment is critical to not falling down. Make sure your clothing is fitted well to you. Make sure your ergonomic aids are fitted to you. We're going to touch on this briefly later in this discussion as well. I can't stress enough, if you watch elderly individuals with a walker, most of them are letting their walker walk them, and they are not walking their walker. It's an ergonomic aid. It's not an ergonomic assist tool. So you can actually lose postural stability and control by letting the walker kind of walk you. And we'll discuss this biomechanically in a few slides from now. But you can actually use your ambulatory aid as an exercise partner and work on your posture just during the day, just a few repetitions, a few minutes, a few seconds every day to get stronger and stand up better and work on our posture. Most of my senior citizens that come in to work out with me, or the senior population, their number one issue is activities of daily living, working on their posture and getting stronger and having more sense of balance as they move around whatever their activity may or may not be. So there has been a ton of research done on strengthening and fall prevention. And just know this isn't a college class talking about the different statistics of each study, but just know that on average, if you work out and strengthen your body, you're going to reduce your risk of falling by up to 34%. So that's kind of the takeaway with regards to the literature. If you want to look up some literature, I can refer you out to some newer literature than this, but just know that if you strength train, you are going to reduce your risk by falling by up to 33 to 34%, which is significant. Okay, so let's get into the meat of today's topic. That was kind of a recap of our last discussion, worried about falling. But if you research online, and most people like to do this, they like to peruse the internet because all the data is out there. Most things that you're going to find if you typed into the internet, like what is the benefit of senior fitness, it's going to be fall prevention, strength training, balance training, flexibility, mobility, and improving your ability to ambulate more effectively. Ambulate means to walk. So walking around a room more effectively and feeling more stable. So if and when you're about ready to start down an exercise pathway, it's kind of like, it's important to find out where you want to land, who you want to work with, who you want to be your mentor, who you want to be your coach. It's really critical to find somebody that has a background in your anatomy, your biomechanics, your pathology, meaning like any ailments you may or may not have, whether it's chronic disease, cancer, osteoarthritis, post-hip replacement, post-knee replacement, bad backs, bad shoulders. All those things are critical when you're about to start a new exercise program, because it takes an individual so much energy to actually leave their house, go start to work out, that the last thing you want to do is get disappointed in the first few sessions and get hurt and then stop working out. So it's critical to make sure that you find somebody that's going to help you, and or if you need to get that other assistance, like go back to your doctor because you're not quite ready, get cleared by your physician, work with a physical therapist or a chiropractor or a massage therapist to ensure that you're able to handle the load. Those are critical. So make sure that your exercise program is designed by a healthcare professional. And here are a few of the basic personal training certifications to look for. So NATA, ACE, NSCA, NASM, ISAA, ACSM, any of those are great. Or try to find somebody that has a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Physiology or Physical Therapy. If you find a physical therapist, that's going to be fabulous. Most physical therapists do not do a ton of cash pay, although it's becoming a new trend in physical therapy. So if you go see your physician and your physician says, I want you to start exercising, and he writes you a script for PT, that's only going to cover you for a few visits, and your copays could be pretty expensive. So personal training is a good option from a cost standpoint, and we'll be able to take care of you for a much longer period of time than your physical therapist could, because once your sessions run out, unless they offer a cash pay plan, you're not going to be able to see them or work with them. So personal training is a good adjunct to PT once you're done with physical therapy, because we can carry you longer if it's a good fit for the client. Can't stress this enough too. If you go and work and meet with a personal trainer, once you've been cleared from PT and your physician, make sure that that personal trainer is doing some sort of fitness consult with you and some sort of fitness assessment. Many personal trainers, sometimes they don't go down that path just from a time standpoint. In my shop at Uptown Sports Medicine, we're really passionate, and we love to take our clients in and assess them. And then we like to actually do a postural assessment with them, a complete biomechanical assessment with them, and make sure that we're going to give them a more personalized prescription instead of just throwing you into like just a general formatted exercise program. So make sure that your program is tailored to what you want. So if that healthcare individual isn't asking you, what do you want? Why do you want to do it? What are your goals? Then you might want to consider consulting with somebody different. That would just be my recommendation. So critical as well, your physician knows you better than I will. So most of my clients, depending on how our fitness consult goes, I'm going to have them go consult with their physician, because number one, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. And their doctor knows way more than I ever will about medications and how everything kind of flows together. So make sure you get cleared with your physician before you go out and exercise. Really, really important. What will probably happen though, however, when you go talk to your doctor and say, hey, I want to start working out, they're probably going to be, and if you were to say to them, hey, Dr. Joe, what should I do? He's probably going to say, go find a personal trainer or go to a gym, right? So I know from experience, because I've actually done that with doctors, just to see what they would say. Like right now, I'm a little heavier than I normally was, and I went in for my physical, and I said, do you think I should start exercising? He said, yeah. Well, I'm like, well, what should I do? Do you have a diet for me? Do you have an exercise program? No, just go work out. So it was really interesting, the disconnect between the primary care world and then the gym world. So you're going to have to take that upon yourself and do your due diligence and your research on the individual that you're looking to work with to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for you. Okay, so with all that boiled down, we need to start talking about the different types of exercises, and from a programming standpoint, what you should and shouldn't be doing. If you're going to work with a good personal trainer, a good strength coach, or a great physical therapist, they're going to, in their mind, already have some pre-programming laid out for you over 12 weeks without you knowing it. And that's because they're going to take you through some progressions. So remember what I talked about when we first opened this discussion up. For your demographic, for you as an individual, what do you want? Like if a receiver comes to me and says, hey, Adrian, I want to get down to a 4.5 40 and I want to be able to catch 100 passes and I want to make it to college, we're going to do a program for that individual from a sports specificity standpoint. So there's no different in taking that programming and addressing it to a senior individual that just had a knee replacement. Let's say you're like 16 weeks post-op, You're 90 days post-op, your physician's cleared you to work out, but you don't know what to do. So it's really critical that you hook up with somebody that will ask you, well, what would you like to do? Now that you've had your knee replaced, what is it that you would like to do? I've had clients ask me that they want to ski again. I say, I don't know if that's a great idea. That I would recommend maybe not doing that right away, or lots of different whys, and can I do this and can I do that, or what should I do? And it's fascinating. And I love how active people are staying. People are staying way more active for a longer period of time now than ever before in the history of humankind. Right now, we're living longer than any humans ever have before us, which is awesome. Okay, so to get into the essence of the why. So for this population, for individuals that are over the age of 65, it's imperative that you understand biomechanically how you walk, because the number one activity of daily living that you need is to be able to walk. If you can't walk, you're going to break down so much more quickly than if you can keep walking. Walking is so underrated. So this is how we actually walk. So without getting too detailed into different muscle groups that are working, just understand that you have different phases of your gait. So the gait is the way that you walk. You have a heel strike, a mid stance, a toe off, and a swing phase. And if I'm walking and my left leg is doing all those things, my right leg is doing the complete opposite. So we are always only walking on one foot at a time, and we're actually constantly falling and recovering every single step. Well, what's preventing us from falling down is neurological control and strength and balance and the way that our body perceives where we are in space. So that is the premise for the exercises that I usually work on with individuals that want to reduce the risk for falling, that want to improve their activities of daily living, and that want to just play and have fun with their grandkids and their husbands and their wives, and they want to continue traveling. So that's the essence of the types of exercises that we're trying to really work on and strengthen. So again, we're not talking anatomy, but this is kind of important just to understand why. So these are the different muscle groups that we're trying to work on. So it's going to be our upper posture, our midsection, which is our core, our hip flexors, which lift our legs and drive us forward through that heel strike, mid stance, swing phase, and then our calf musculature, which is our lower extremity. So our feet, our calves. So we want to work on all of those muscles and keep them strong, flexible, mobile, etc. Postural stability and control is really imperative. And if you look at this individual, you can see how he's really forward on his walker. So talking about exercises with people that have walkers, it's really important to actually use your walker and actually stand up as tall as you possibly can and use that walker as an exercise tool instead of letting your walker walk you. Puts you in a really high vulnerable risk of falling. So if we go back to the walking slide, you can see how this individual, number one, they're looking down, which is, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you were to use your walker in the mid stance phase, you can actually help to hold yourself upright and work on strengthening all of those muscles that control your posture while you're walking, instead of doing a posture like this, which is a really unstable posture. So he's opening his door, he's really forward. His right leg, his toe is pointed outwards. So he's trying to help balance himself by pointing his right toe out, and he's in a really unstable position right here. So try to keep yourself in a more upright position if you are in a walker. Okay, so the 4 categories of exercise that we're going to kind of briefly dive into are going to be strength and resistance training. So we'll talk about examples of each of these here in the next few slides. Aerobic or physical activity, so that's your cardiovascular endurance. That's how your heart and your lungs move oxygen efficiently through our bodies. Flexibility is how we're going to stay nice and loose. And then our balance. Okay, so strength and resistance training. So what is it? So strength and resistance training can be a whole host of different apparatuses. It can be lifting free weights. You can do resistance bands. In our homes at Prestige Senior Living, we have a lot of resistance training, which I love resistance bands. They're really, really good for starting out in a resistance-based program. Free weights, you can use machine-driven equipment. There's lots of, you can use your own body weight too. If you're strong enough to do a squat, that's resistance training essentially. But you want to do resistance training 2 to 3 times a week with a rest day between sessions. It's really important. When you break muscle tissue down, it needs 24 to 48 hours to recover. So if you train the same muscle groups every single day, your risk of developing overuse injuries goes up significantly. I think I read a study 2 years ago that over 53% of all athletic injuries were overuse in nature. So that's all back to how the individual is training. I see it so much in younger athletes right now. They're playing 3 and 4 sports a season. They don't have any recovery time at all. They're playing a game one night, then they're going to a different practice, and they're working with their strength coach, and then they have their speed, agility, and quickness coach, and they're getting a lot of itises, little bursitis, tendonitis, and that really decreases their performance. So just for like a senior individual, if you already are in pain and you train or overtrain, you're not going to want to train anymore. It's not going to feel good. So it's already hard enough to work out, and why work out in pain? It's not fun. It's defeating the purpose. So give yourself some recovery time. It's okay. So those are just some different examples of strength and resistance training. Now, those are the kinds of strength and resistance training from a programming standpoint for seniors or for middle-aged individuals. I like to recommend these movement patterns. So if you work with a personal trainer, this slide is really important. They're going to give you 2 to 3 exercises for a push. So this would be a push, a pull, and hip hinge. We're not going to really go over that online because it's really important to show that to you in person. But your hinge, so it would be like a Romanian deadlift or a kettlebell swing squat. Your squat is really important. Lateral movements are really important. And core stability. Core stability is really misunderstood in some of the personal training world. Core stability is not doing abdominal strengthening. It's a kind of a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. When you do core stability, you're actually not moving your body. Your body is actually stabilizing through different stabilization muscle groups. They're stabilizing your lower back and your midsection and your pelvic floor. So that is core stability. That is with a muscle called your transverse abdominis that has a kinetic relationship with your spinal stabilizers that helps to stabilize the midsection of your body. So as you move, you're more stable. Doing abdominal strengthening is just as critical, but sometimes in people that have bad backs, which a lot of people have a bad back in the United States, doing forward flexion and rotation with abdominal strengthening movements can actually be negative towards your spine. So I really like looking towards more of the core stabilization road. So if you have a trainer telling you that you're doing core stability and he's having you do crunches or oblique twists or med ball throws, that's really not core stabilization. That's abdominal strengthening, okay? Cardiovascular, I just took a big deep breath. I'm out of breath. Cardiovascular, whew, talking too fast. So aerobic physical activity, we touched on the benefits of exercise. It's going to reduce your blood pressure. It's going to reduce your cardiac output. It's going to help with heart disease. It's going to help with diabetes. So how much cardiovascular fitness should we do? Well, according to the American College of Sports Medicine, they want us to be doing 30 minutes every single day. Now, if you've been sedentary for the last year, I would strongly recommend to not start with that much load in the beginning. Start with maybe 5 to 15 minutes. So meaning like, okay, I'm really motivated after hearing Adrian talk about moving. I'm going to go for a walk today. If you go for a walk today, just make sure that you walk out of your house 5 minutes up the street and 5 minutes back and see how you feel the next day, or actually see how you feel right when you get home, because you might not be able to handle that much load. If you feel good after 5 minutes, increase it to 10. Feel good after 10, increase it to 15, and work your way up to 30 minutes over the course of about 4 to 6 weeks, okay? But just know that the American College of Sports Medicine strongly recommends that we move just walking, for example, 30 minutes a day. Other types of aerobic activity are going to be water aerobics, which is fabulous if you have some sort of joint issues. It's really another underrated tool that people don't utilize much. Tai Chi is fabulous, especially for people with Parkinson's or memory cognitive decline. Boxing is awesome. There's a lot of programs up here in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. I think there's a Rock Steady boxing program that works with the Parkinson's Foundation, and I think in Portland, and if I'm misquoting that, let me know later. But they really do a lot for Parkinson's individuals. So boxing is fabulous because you actually have to move in a movement pattern that your brain isn't ever really used to doing. So the biggest thing with cognitive decline is we stop moving in different movement patterns, and our body kind of forgets how to move. So boxing gives you, it's like a memory game, and you have to move through something that you may or may not have done before. So it's really, really good. Really beneficial to cardiovascular and to cognitive decline. Flexibility and mobility. Yoga, love yoga or Pilates in conjunction to strength and resistance training or aerobic training. If you can add in some sort of stretching session, whether it's yoga or Pilates, I think that's fabulous. Just know that stretching, physiologically, it actually takes your muscle tissue, without going into too much detail, it takes your muscle tissue approximately 15 to 30 seconds to actually relax, because inside of our muscle tissue, we have built-in stretch mechanisms that don't want our muscle to stretch. So to override that system, you need to hold that stretch without bouncing for approximately 15 to 30 seconds. What's really popular in today's athletic world and personal training world is more of a dynamic warm-up, where you are actually taking your body and moving it through different movement patterns to help loosen and warm you up. So whichever one you prefer, they're both beneficial. Some of you may or may not be able, if you're chair bound, you're not going to be able to do a ton of dynamic stuff, but there are some movements that you can do dynamically that will warm you up and get your body ready for exercise. So hold each stretch for 15 to 30 seconds. Dynamic movements, they're going to be 10 to 15 movements. So if you were to go to like a professional football game or baseball game, now that we can actually kind of get out and go back to games, if you get there early and watch the players, don't watch them actually playing, but if you watch along the sidelines, all the players will actually be doing dynamic warm-ups prior to playing. So they're just getting their body ready to move. And this is really important, last little bullet point. Make sure that your ranges of motion are pain-free. So many of us have been to a physical therapist. The big takeaway at PT is always make sure you move your body through a pain-free range of motion. So if, for example, my finger, if I can move it from here to here and it doesn't hurt, or like if I move it to here and hurts, I can still do a pain-free range of motion like this, as long as it's applicable to your joint. So talk with your healthcare provider about moving through pain-free ranges of motion. Okay, balance. I would say balance is in the top 3 things when I ask my clients when they come in to work with me, what are your goals from a fitness standpoint? Balance is definitely up there. As we get older, we start to feel less steady. I have many clients that they'll start to say like, oh man, Adrian, I went to a concert last weekend and I climbed to the nosebleeds and I looked down and I felt like I lost my balance and I didn't like that feeling. So what can we do to work on that? So to understand how to work and improve our balance, you have to really learn about what is making us balance inside of our body anatomically and physiologically. So before we actually start to train balance, I think it's really important to learn how our body actually creates balance, because we just throw it out there like a garbage can term, like, oh man, I lost my balance. Well, there's lots of other factors that can be attributed to balancing. Number one is going to be our visual system. So our eyes, and unfortunately, as we get older, we start to lose our vision. And if you look back, if you remember back to our gait slide, the posture of that individual in that graphic, they were looking down. And the reason why that individual especially seniors, when you walk, you're looking down and you start to shuffle your gait. So you look down, your posture comes forward, you start to shuffle, 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 is because your body, from a balance standpoint, is relying heavily on our eyes and how our body processes where we are in space. So we don't just walk up to a curb and go, hey, body, lift your leg up 6 inches. No, your eyes see that curb. You lift your leg, it goes into your brain. It happens super, super fast, which is absolutely fascinating to me. And our eyes are so heavily dominant in balance. So to help to train your eyes away from looking down, I would recommend that if you're on a walker or you're trying to practice walking, try to gaze out away from looking straight down. I mean, by all means, if you don't feel steady, make sure you're holding on to something. But something as simple from a balance training standpoint for visual enhancement is not looking down when you're exercising or walking. And I think if after this talk, many of you will catch yourself as you're walking, looking down. You're like, oh, dang, he's totally right. So that's why balance progressions from a visual standpoint usually start off with chin up or start with eyes closed. And once you close your eyes, now you're relying on the other components which we perceive balance in space. So vision is critical. Our vestibular system is number 2 on the list for how we balance. And inside of our inner ear, we have this fluid that it's kind of like a kelp forest, I guess would be the easiest way to perceive what's happening in there. But the fluid kind of has our head upright and we know where we are. So if you spin around on a merry-go-round and you get off and you get dizzy, that's happening actually in your inner ear, believe it or not. Or if you've ever had vertigo. So if you've ever had vertigo, the little kelp forest, there's little crystalline hairs inside of your inner ear and they get stuck and they tell your head to spin. So, and as we get older, unfortunately, that fluid becomes less viscous and it gets more sticky. And that's why individuals can actually have vertigo or get dizzy spells just from, I have clients, sometimes we'll have them down in a prone position and they get up too quick and they, whoa, I'm really dizzy. I'm like, yep, well, that's because your inner ear is just not adjusted yet. So we have to go a little slower. So there are vestibular training exercises that you can work on that will help you balance. So we got visual vision balance training tools, and we have vestibular balance training tools. So those of you that are listening in, if you've had vertigo and you went to a physical therapist, you may have gone and done some vestibular training where they actually will unlock those hairs so they can stand back up again and you're just not spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. So that's vestibular training. And then the last but not least on how we balance is the way that our feet and our feet and our eyes tell what we're walking on. So if I'm walking on gravel, I already know that that's an unstable surface and my body perceives that. Or if I'm crossing a creek and I step on a rock and that rock moves, that's happened to me tons of times going hiking in the woods. You think that rock is solid or there's moss on it and your foot starts to go. Well, your brain instantly makes an adjustment and you jump or catch yourself or you fall down. So that's the somatosensory and proprioceptive tools that we can actually incorporate into the gym to work on to develop your kinesthetic awareness. So your kinesthetic awareness is how you perceive your body in space, whether it's dark, light, unbalanced, slippery surfaces, stable surfaces. All those things are happening neurologically and telling your brain what you should and shouldn't do or to make the different adjustments. So just some brief balance drills. Now, I don't like sharing a lot of these balance drills with just to the general population in the discussion, but the takeaway from these balance drills is just know that there are exercises that you can do that are specific to helping you balance, okay? And there's a lot of them. There's tons of them, but these are just a few examples. If you're not stable, please do not just stand up on one foot in your house, okay? Make sure you're holding on to something or make sure that there's something that you can actually sit down on if you get stuck. But a real simple balance drill, if you're able to stand up and down, is simply just standing up on one foot. That is probably one of the easiest and most simple balance drills that you can work on. Make sure you hold on. So what I recommend to my clients is get in front of a countertop or a chair or a door jamb and make sure you're holding on to something. And you don't have to lift your leg up to night. This person is hip flexed almost to 90 degrees. You don't have to lift up that high to start. Just start with just standing, just lift your 1 foot off the ground. So this positioning, how this gentleman is standing in this picture, he's very stable with his left hand and his left leg is coming up. So if you're going to do single leg balance drills, make sure it's that inside leg that comes up, or stand in front of a counter or a table and just lift that 1 foot up. You could just start with just taking 90% of the pressure off your left foot. And so having 100% on your right foot and like 90% on your left foot. So start with that and progress to where you're actually lifting your foot all the way off the ground, and then work up to being able to balance on 1 foot for up to a minute. And then come to the other side of the chair and do the other leg. So the progression then would be to actually close your eyes, but I wouldn't recommend doing that right off the bat. It's something that you can work up to, and make sure that you have somebody around, because if you practice it at home, if you stand up on 1 foot and close your eyes, you're going to really feel off balance very quickly. And then there's some other examples. You have the 4-stage balance. I mean, if you were to type into YouTube balance exercises for seniors, or go to your local gym and ask for foot position balance drills, or there's all kinds of stuff you can work on from a foot positioning standpoint. If you played athletics as a younger individual, a lot of that stuff that they were teaching you with, like from a speed, agility, and quickness standpoint, are really helping you to balance better. So different foot positions is critical. The drunk drivers, where you actually stand and put 1 foot in front of the other, like you're doing a sobriety checkpoint test. I mean, a lot of the sobriety checkpoint tests are challenging your balance, because if you're inebriated, your balance is going to be off, and those police officers are going to be able to tell based on your lack of balance what's happening with all those systems that we talked about. So the 4-stage balance drills are a really good one. So this individual is just basically going to step forward, then step side, then step back. And she's just going to kind of step through 3 dots as she's stepping around. And that's going to emulate her walking and having to make a change of direction. So if you're walking down the street and a cat jumps out in front of you, instead of tripping on the cat, you can actually take a step to the side without falling down. So that's really, really important to train. And it's important just to stay strong and have fun. I mean, most of my clients, they just want to improve their quality of life. They want to stay strong. They want to celebrate life with their grandkids and their wives, and they want to stay active. So I can't stress enough, and just to move. If you could take away anything from this today, I would hope that you guys just get up and start moving. It's never too late to start moving, especially right now with everything with COVID. I think it's really important for us to de-stress our bodies, de-stress our brains, and do something beneficial for your strength, balance, flexibility, and mobility. So hopefully we covered just a little bit of the surface. Hopefully we kind of made some enticements for you to get motivated and consult with your healthcare providers to get started on that exercise program. We talked about the importance of exercise for seniors, why exercising regularly is important. Again, it goes back to just maintaining that healthy lifestyle. It's good for all of your systems, neurologically, cardiovascularly, orthopedically, musculoskeletally, balance. All that stuff is really cognitive function. Moving is really important to keeping your brain sharp. After all, the neuroscientists of today are pretty much finding out that the brain's primary function is to control human movement. So if we move our bodies through different pathways, it's going to improve or lessen your chance of declining cognitively, which is really important. Okay, so we're going to help reduce our risk of falling, and hopefully I gave you some tips and tricks for exercising to improve your health and to maintain independence. So with that, I'll hand it over to Marissa Payne. She is the Celebrations Product Manager for Prestige Senior Living, and she's going to talk with you a little bit about what Prestige Senior Living has to offer for our residents. So I appreciate all of your time. And I look forward to taking some questions as soon as Marissa's done here in a few minutes. So I hand it over to you, Marissa.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, if anybody would like to ask any questions, you should have a button along the bottom of your screen there that allows you to raise your hand, and I can then invite you to unmute your mic. Alternatively, you can type your question into the Q&A chat and we can answer your question that way. While we're waiting for questions to come in, Adrian, I was wondering, would you speak to, have you seen any change of conditioning in people in general as a result of the pandemic? And where would you advise them to start as they start to work on that now as we come out of it?
That is a great question. And when I first started consulting with Prestige Senior Living 8 years ago, designing this celebrations exercise fall prevention program for them, there wasn't a lot of bad pushback, but sometimes it's very hard to show how important working out is to an individual or to a business. So when people, including I'll speak to this, when my clients come and see me on a regular basis and they're consistent, sometimes they get to a point after, let's say, a 6 months or a year, hey, is this really benefiting me at all? Do you really think that this is beneficial for me for working out? And I say yes. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and it really impacted, especially Prestige Senior Living. We had individuals coming to group classes. We had 10 to 20 residents coming to our group classes that we offer in 40 of our different facilities over 8 states. And all those individuals were at a really nice strength. They got a nice gain in the first 6 months, and they were maintaining their strength, balance, flexibility, and independence. And then the pandemic hit, and all those individuals went sedentary. For the most of them went sedentary, and they lost a significant amount of traction from a strength, flexibility, mobility, cognitive standpoint. So yes, absolutely, this has been negatively impacted. It's negatively impacted us from a mental and physical well-being. I heard a stat that the average weight gain for a millennial during the COVID pandemic last year was 42 pounds. So I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, the average weight gain for a female over the age of 50 is usually 10 pounds per year, and millennials gained 42 pounds on average last year. I mean, that's catastrophic from a chronic disease standpoint. And to take 42 pounds off, that's going to take a significant amount of fitness and dietary restrictions to get that off. So yes, I have seen many clients of mine, including some of my clients, that they didn't want to work out anymore, although we did transition some of them to a virtual training standpoint, so that was good. But for those that just decided to stop working out, yes, they actually physically felt, from a subjective standpoint, that their bodies became less conditioned. So yes, it's definitely impacted us from a healthcare standpoint in the United States with the pandemic.
Thank you, Adrian. And while you were giving us that insight, Barbara asked a question. It sounds like she's ready to get started. She wants to know, where do you recommend on how to find a personal trainer, and how do you assess how good they are?
That's a really good question. And number one, you have to do your due diligence. So number one, Barbara, depending on what state you live in, one, I would always consult with your physician and ask them first, because sometimes, for my business, for example, I have a couple of physicians that I work with that will refer me directly, refer their patients to me directly. So that's a place to start. Online is always a good place to start, but make sure that you look into the bio of that personal trainer and make sure that they fit those qualifications that I kind of mentioned prior, or just type in senior fitness personal training. You might find somebody that specializes in that market for you, depending on which state you live in. So if that answers your question, great. If not, feel free to ask another one.
Perfect. Thank you, Adrian. It doesn't look like we have any other questions in the chat. So
Okay.
As Adrian had said, here at Prestige, we have our Celebrations, Energize Exercise, and Fall Reduction program, which he actually helped us design. And its main purpose is to increase strength and balance to reduce and prevent your risk of falls. We also have a free fall risk assessment at www.fallriskassessment.com. So if you want to take all of this information that Adrian has just provided us and take it that step further, by completing this fall risk self-assessment, you'll be able to have an even greater understanding of your personal risk factors. And in addition to receiving an overview of your fall risk, we'll provide you with the tools and resources you'll need to understand why falls occur and help reduce your likelihood of falling at home. Adrian, did you have anything else to add before we close for the afternoon?
If you want to ask me any direct questions, you can find my website. It's uptownsportsmedicine.com. I'm on Facebook and social media. So if you want to shoot me a comment privately, feel free to find me on those platforms. All of my contact information is on my website. My office is in Vancouver, Washington, but I do virtual consultations. So if you want a virtual consult, just feel free to hit me up on any of those platforms, and I'd be happy to help you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adrian. And yes, this has been recorded. So a recording and a copy of Adrian's slides will be sent out to all of you afterwards. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, Adrian, for your time and your insights. And the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Marissa. Have a great day.
Thank you.